Welcome to the Fintech Diversity Radar's Female Founders Series by Findexable. My name is Linda Say, and I have the pleasure of being your host for today. In this series, I am honored and privileged to be talking to female leaders around the world about what it takes for them to thrive and be successful in a very male-dominated world. It's all about gender diversity, and I'm having these incredible conversations with these amazing women. And today I'm so excited to be speaking with Seema Johnson, who is the co-founder and COO of Nuggets, based in London, England. So Seema and I first met in Amsterdam way back in 2019. It seems like a lifetime ago almost. So much has happened. But I met her there because she was invited to attend the Money 2020 Rise Up Europe Academy, and a well-deserved invitation attendee, I must say. So Seema has a very long list of accolades, and I'm going to read these off because I don't want to mess them up, but I do want everyone to know that this is a woman, female fintech leader on fire. So Seema was invited to Accenture's London Fintech Innovation Lab just this year. The company received the Most Disruptive Retail Technology and Alternative Payments Award by Retail Systems this year. Seema has been included on a number of lists, including the Top 100 Women in FinTech 2021, the Most Influential Women in Payments 2020, Top 100 Asian Stars in UK Tech, and also Senior Leader Innovate Finance's Women in FinTech Power List 2020. She was named Entrepreneur of the Year in 2020. Nuggets was named Security Innovation of the Year in 2020, and part of Barclays Techstars in 2020. So a lot going on in the last couple of years, like I said. And Seema, it is so good to see you, and thank you for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me about Nuggets. What is the idea behind it, and what problem does it solve, or problems does it solve?
So Nuggets, it's all about trusted transactions, essentially, a verified identity at each end of a transaction. There's a huge identity crisis right now, and trust in the system that supports our digital lives, whether it's online, offline, has been massively eroded. So you think around whenever we open up an account, whenever we sign up for something, whenever we speak to someone, access a service, we're open to fraud, social engineering, and this is security issues, privacy issues, and really the identity sits at the heart of this problem.
Yeah. You know what, Seema, I think there's not a week that goes by that I don't get an email, a notification that my data's been found in some data breach, and it's so scary. And it's, as a consumer, and it takes time, right? So every time you have to go change your passwords and do all this stuff. And it's scary, super, super scary. So that's what I love about this idea. I think I saw somewhere, somebody said that privacy is a fundamental human right. And it's so true, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, Nuggets, although we're about trusted transactions on the consumer side, we really are enabling consumers to take back control of their data. We absolutely believe that personal information should be owned and controlled by the individual, and that privacy is a fundamental human right. And over the years, we've all lost that with all of the big tech and everything that we signed into. Data is a huge commodity.
Yes.
And I think with the likes of Nuggets and products, in this area means that you can have a frictionless customer experience, but without having to give up all of your rights to your privacy. That's so incredibly valuable to us.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing, this idea. So for those of us that don't understand blockchain very much, and I have to admit, I've been in this industry for some time, I still kind of go, but wait, what? You have to really think about it. Can you kind of simplify, if possible, how that works? How does blockchain help us own our own privacy?
Yeah, so great question. So blockchain is a component of the Nuggets technical architecture, essentially. What happens, so I'll explain this via a customer experience to really bring to life for everyone that might be listening. So essentially what happens is with our product, it gets white labeled, it fits seamlessly within the organization's products and services that we work with. So when you open up an account or create a new account, you essentially take a picture of a government issued ID, you do a moving selfie, you then add a payment card. And what we do is we componentize all that data in a user's digital cloud vault. So nothing is stored on your device. We then, after we componentize all that data and encrypt that data, it essentially gets stored on something called IPFS, which is decentralized storage. It's got the most phenomenal name called Interplanetary File System. You'd think it was from Star Trek.
Yes.
I know it's brilliant, right? And then what we do is we do something called hashing on a blockchain, and it's a private permissioned blockchain. Our entire environment is, because it's compliant with GDPR here in Europe, CCPA in the States, which means that no PII data can be stored on anything that's a public blockchain. And what we really use the blockchain for is as an immutable ledger. So what happens with our identities is that every time you log in, every time you pay, every time you verify your identity, we essentially provide a tick. And what that does over time is provide a good actor. And we don't cast any, it's not a judgment, but what we say is the strength and the confidence score of the identity. And the beauty of the blockchain in the way that we use it means that it's tamper proof and it's incredibly secure. So in our case, that's how we utilize the blockchain. We use it as a ledger and we know that it's tamper proof. And our version of the blockchain is a private permissioned one, which means that we don't have any of the implications around cost or the environmental damage or the speed that's sometimes associated with using the public version of blockchain.
Right. Oh my gosh, what a phenomenal idea. I love this so much, Seema. Tell me a little bit about who's adopting this. Who are your customers? Is it merchants that are going first? Is it PSPs or is it banks?
Absolutely. And that was one of our challenges, right? It has a huge appeal and it's not, it's agnostic, it's sector agnostic, it's vertical agnostic. So essentially it can apply to everyone. So where we looked at this, Linda, was where is the challenge and the pain the greatest? And actually it's in payments. So where we're finding our first few customers were global payment service providers that essentially power the payment hosted page across hundreds of thousands of merchants. So you can now think about, with Nuggets being white labeled by these merchants, there's a frictionless, account creation, login, no more forget password. And you don't need to be sharing your payment information with the merchant either. So it can go PSP to PSP. So PSPs were the first, and we do a number of things for them. One around customer experience with the end user, around privacy and security and all of those things, but also we enable them to onboard their own merchants as well with a verified digital identity. Then our next customer was a large global organization called LexisNexis Risk Solutions.
Oh, yeah.
You absolutely, so them. They are the biggest holder and protector of confidential information. So that was a phenomenal partnership for us to sign, because they could really see the value of a self-sovereign verified digital identity. So big customer of ours. And then we have lots of other customers. We're obviously working with some financial institutions, some insurance organizations as well, essentially anywhere where a digital identity could be tied to payment and there's privacy and security concerns. So that's really where we're seeing our traction. So we've now launched we've launched in Europe, we've launched in the UK, we've launched in Australia. Exciting times.
Yes, you just answered my next question, which was what regions are you hitting there? So, I mean, this is global, right? I mean, your reach is just kind of everybody everywhere, actually. So that's really super exciting. And congrats on LexisNexis. That's huge.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, and when we talked about when, you know, other markets, we've also just cleared legal and regulatory review, Linda, in the US, because
Mm,
obviously for us, that's an incredibly strategic
yes.
market.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's great. And I can't wait to get that on my app, by the way. Like I've already tried, it's like, not in your area, lady,
Yeah.
you know,
Sorry,
but
Linda. We're working on it.
yeah, I'll be one of your first for sure.
Fantastic.
Seema, tell me about the inspiration. So what inspired you to go out and create your own company? And what was that timeline like for you? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for some time, you know, I'd been in tech for a long time, like over 20 years. I'd worked for organizations like Skype, Microsoft, and I got to a point where, you know, working for a large corporate organization, even though it was technical, you know, that real entrepreneurial, I suppose, fire in my belly
Yeah.
just needed another outlet essentially. But you need a good idea, right? You can't
Yeah.
just go and set up a company. You need a problem to solve. And it's not really about the technology. It's, you know, ensuring there's a need for whatever you're building. And I think really, I think it was late 2015, my husband had his credit card used fraudulently online. And, you know, that incredibly frustrating process of having to cancel your cards, not knowing where it was compromised, right, Linda? We can all relate to this.
Yes. This
Yeah,
just happened to my mother, by the way.
yeah.
And that's a whole nother level, you know, with the elderly, you know, getting, I mean, their identity stolen and all this stuff. And what a nightmare that was. I mean, just a nightmare. And yes, we can all feel that pain because we all know or have been ourselves in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, you know, we need to be building products and services where the onus isn't on the individual to protect their privacy and security. It's just
Right.
inherent in the products that we build.
Right.
So what happened was Alistair had his credit card used fraudulently online. We didn't know where it was. And this is something that everyone can relate to. We've all had a PayPal account that's been phished or socially, we've all had, you
Yeah.
know, scenario where we've had to cancel a card. And
Right.
essentially it took 2 weeks for the card to come back. And then he had to plug into all of the online services. It was probably about 80 plus his new credit card details. And I think actually, Alistair thought this is bonkers. It's like we're writing down our credit card address information, my name, my date of birth, all of my PII data, putting it on a sticky note or a post-it note and saying to the shopkeeper within with any store, can you pop that in your till because I might come back next month or in
Right.
6 months' time. So what we were doing really is that. And we
Yeah.
just thought there had to be a better way. I mean, neither of us were from payments, which naive, you know, and probably we just didn't realize how big this thing was that we took on. But there was definitely a problem that needed solving. And we thought, wouldn't it be brilliant if all of us could have a token with our information in, and I could still do all of the things that I love doing, like, you know, accessing services, shopping online and all of those things, but not jeopardize my privacy and security. And that's really how we came up with Nuggets.
Oh my gosh. So as you're telling me this, so many things are going through my mind. I love the analogy to sticky notes, right? Because that's exactly what we're doing. And it feels like every time they ask for this, it's like, well, you know, okay, but I have to trust you, Mr. Merchant or Mr. Loan Provider or whomever, you know, to protect my data, which is proving almost impossible these days for them to do. So yeah, so there's that. And then I love the fact that you didn't come from payments, but you experienced this real pain that all consumers have, and you decided to do something about it. So that I love that story, Seema. That's really phenomenal.
Oh, thanks for that, Lydia. I mean, sometimes it was probably a good thing because we didn't know what we were taking on, like I
Right.
mentioned. But it was, I think that's what's been so great about delivering Nuggets and now trying to commercialize. It came from real pain. It didn't come technology. What can I do with the technology?
Right.
And it didn't come from, oh, I just want to set up a business. It came
Yeah.
from, let's address a need.
Yes. And I think, when you have that passion and fire about it, that speaks so loudly. So let's talk about when you were starting, you have this great idea. You say, sometimes it's good that you don't know what you don't know, but what were the obstacles and how did you overcome that, when starting Nuggets?
Yeah. So look, great questions. I think the first one is not around, I mean, funding's a huge one, but I'll come to that shortly.
Yeah.
I think one of the other ones was coming from I wasn't from a startup. I'd worked within tech companies, but not, the first people on the ground. And I
Right.
think first, just that cultural and that working shift of being responsible for everything. You do not have your roles that are clearly defined. You have to do the most junior part of your role to the most
Right.
senior part of your role. And you need to, if you've not got a legal background, you need to be able to review a commercial agreement, pull together
Right.
an NDA, do all of these things that I just wasn't used to doing. So the first say was it was almost like a shock. And
Yeah.
it took me probably about 6 to 9 months to get my head around the fact that you do everything and there's no
Right.
time to spare.
Right.
That's number one. And really what gets you around that is the passion and the fact that really quickly, if you're a purpose-driven individual or you have a mission that you want to accomplish, it's really easy actually to have that extra energy that you need and that passion to deliver.
Yeah.
When you have that purpose behind it, it really doesn't feel like a job, and it can't, because one, you don't get paid anything like you may have been used to.
Right.
And, it really encroaches into your personal life as well. It's not this 9 to 5. And I know many people that work for corporations don't have 9 to 5 either, but there is really no out of office or paid holiday. And obviously that's a challenge as well when you're bringing up children and you have other commitments outside of work. And then the other real big challenge, once you've navigated that, so although we were self-funded for some time, Linda, when you're trying to build an identity and payment platform that's enterprise grade, this isn't an app that you can just maybe prototype and put together a test flight for and get it out into market and try to, break the app and, iterate it a little bit. You really do need to build an enterprise grade platform, needs third-party security testing. You need to work with the regulator. And I think, for that, you really do need external funding. And I would say that was the next challenge.
Right.
And I think one that, again, we went into this naively thinking, we will win the hearts and minds of all investors sitting on the other side of the table. They'll realize that this is a much needed innovation and identity can solve so many things. But the reality is that when you're not an white all male founding team, it's really tough to get access to funding. And there's lots of reasons and lots of, I'm not an expert in this area, but essentially there's lots of data around around pattern matching, the fact that investors, they know in their minds what success looks like. And if you don't mirror that, you will not get the check.
Right.
So, funding's a huge, huge challenge.
It is. And, sadly, I think the number is that women raise only 54 cents to every dollar that a man raises. Only 3% of female entrepreneurs get funding capital, from VCs, which is really a challenge for sure. So do you think, though, that having a co-founder that was a white man helped in this situation?
I couldn't really tell you that because we were also married. So that's another dimension. And actually, so it's all a bit bonkers, really, Linda. I couldn't tell you if that's helped or not helped. And we've got external funding, which is brilliant, but we also had lots of proof points. We were no longer an idea. We had an MVP when we first got our external funding. We'd already worked, it wasn't a prototype and a PowerPoint presentation. It was a working product that had been launched, and we worked with the UK Financial Conduct Authority in 2017 to test out the product. And we'd also had our first client. So I couldn't tell you if that's made it a little bit easier. But I
Right.
can say that, the added dimension of being a married couple, I don't know if that helped. I think the reality is, unless you're all, and there's data around that as well, around mixed teams. And I think unless you are that all male team, it's really tough to get the VC money that you need to
Yeah.
really scale at pace. And actually, as we all know, funding is oxygen.
Yes.
Funding is, because it is a numbers game, and it is, you've got to, you have to stay in the game. It doesn't matter how brilliant your idea is. It
Right.
really is around commercializing at scale, and you actually need to hire a sales team. You need to do, marketing and all of those things, and that, and you need the runway.
Absolutely. I mean, funding is everything, right? I mean, it just really, without it, you can't bootstrap forever, and bootstrapping is just so challenging, but it really is everything. So I'm glad that you've been able to make it this far. It is a really interesting idea, the fact that you're a married team, heading this. So I think that's really interesting. So what would be the one piece of advice, if you had it, for female founders that are just getting started and obtaining capital?
So we've now gone through a number of successful fundraisers, which is great. So I know that there's hope and it's not all doom and gloom. So,
Right.
I think the first thing is, I mean, for me, my number one piece of advice, and there's lots of others that you will have from others, but if we're talking specifically around fundraising, it is a numbers game. And
Yeah.
you can talk about, you should network and you should seek out, you've really got to do your homework here. This is not around just cold calling or writing emails in. You need to really research the investors and the VCs
Yep.
that you are approaching. Make sure that your particular vertical or their portfolio companies are complementary. There would be no point me taking Nuggets to a consumer focused, retail brand that
Right.
essentially just, or travel types of products. I really needed to focus around digital, data security,
Right.
fintech, so really, one, do your research,
Mhm.
focus on the investors and the VCs that actually fund in your area, but also that the predominant is that if you're looking for seed funding or Series A, look for those fund, because hardly ever do they come out of the, or we will now take on a seed, even though lots of Series A funds and Series B say we do look at seed. I haven't come across one that has
Yeah.
in my conversations, and then have many more conversations than you think you need.
Yeah.
This isn't just speaking to 20 investors. You have to speak to, like 100, and
Yes.
you should manage it like it's a work stream within your business, the same way you manage product and engineering or the operational work stream. Have another one called fundraising,
Yes.
all of the dependencies, and track it each week.
Oh,
So that would be, I wish someone had told me this, because I thought it was something I could just tag along with
yes.
everything that I was doing. And actually, you really need to put a considerable amount of effort into, attracting external funding.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, right? And I actually haven't heard anyone else give that advice, but you're absolutely right that that has to be a work stream with just as much priority as everything else that you're trying to do with your company, because like we said earlier, it's air. It's how you get to the next step and can scale. So I think that's just brilliant advice. So thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about some of the initiatives that you're taking at Nuggets and in the industry around gender diversity, equity within the organization and otherwise.
So we are really trying to put our money where our mouth is. Like, firstly, we have been backed by, a great organization, called Angel Academy, which back, female founded businesses. And they're really actively involved as well around supporting the business, whether you need, support from a commercialization perspective, or they can really help with networking as well. I think that's one of the things, because it was really important to us to have diversity within our cap table as well.
Yes.
So that's been phenomenal, actually, to have a number of women on our cap table. I think the other thing is that we are actively looking for women across every part of our business. And, we're a small team right now. There's 23 of us.
Right.
And, I would say to you, a third of that is women and female. So the thing for us right now is that when we put a brief out, we actually say that we are looking for a woman to fulfill this brief.
Awesome.
So that's what we're actively doing,
yes.
Linda. And I think, we did start off putting together, a diversity, signing all these charters, but we're actually already doing it.
Yeah.
Linda, within our organisation. And we feel really proud about that as well, and good about the work that we're putting in there. Because, as we know, diverse, whether it's ethnically diverse teams, and I can say on that point as well, we are very ethnically diverse here at Nuggets.
Excellent.
But we're not only ethnically, but, from a, like I mentioned there, from a gender perspective as well. But we do know that mixed diverse teams are happier teams, and they really do outperform teams that think all in the same way.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I actually think, again, Linda, this needs to be a priority within the business, because a business that doesn't take diversity seriously now will no longer be relevant in 5 years from
That's
now.
right.
So I actually think it needs to be a huge priority.
Yes, you're speaking my language, of course. What I always tell people is that it's not just diversity, right? It's all about equity and inclusion. So it takes the three and belonging. So that's the secret sauce. When you have all of those together, you will have more competitive teams. You will be more innovative. You'll be more profitable. And my bottom line always is, it's a business imperative. There is profit that's attached to this initiative. So I'm so happy that you know that, and that you're doing that. And it'll only mean better things in the long run for Nuggets too, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the split of wealth now, I mean, I read a phenomenal research paper, I think it was by Boston Consulting Group, that said the split of wealth in the next few years, something like a third of the world's wealth will be under the management of women. I mean, I'm so excited about that prospect, that people sitting on the other side of the table from me will be those that are making decisions on what contracts are awarded, who gets the cash. So no, it's an exciting time.
Yes, absolutely. It is. So what's next for Nuggets?
It's all mixed up together, really. I too am on a mission and a purpose with Nuggets. And I really think for us, the US is next. I mean, right now we've got our heads down. We're commercializing the business. We're trying to get deals over the line and, trying to hit our revenue numbers. So all of us are focused on that, attracting and retaining customers objective. And really the US is next for us. Next year we want to launch in the US. We're already working with a number of customers there, but we want to launch at scale in the US. It's an incredibly, strategic market for us. So really the US, and building out the team in the US. And I'm sure that will keep us very busy over the next few years.
Right. Seema, it's been a pleasure catching up with you and chatting today. And I love hearing all about Nuggets and the great things that you're doing. I also want to thank our audience for listening in and watching this episode of the Fintech Diversity Radar's Female Founders Series. The Fintech Diversity Radar is building the world's first data set on diversity in fintech around the world. And here's how you can help bridge the gender divide. If you're a fintech or an FSB, please take part in the Findexable survey on Findexable.com. It only takes a few minutes. It's anonymous, but the radar is only as good as the data that goes in. So we need everybody to participate in that. Follow Findexable on social media platforms and be a part of the conversation. There's incredible conversations going on out there about this gender diversity in our industry. So please be a part of that. Subscribe to Findexable's YouTube channel. And if you want more information, of course, always reach out at info@findexable.com. Thank you, and until next time.